Welcome to Dr. Proctor. I am T here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm here today with Dr. Gene Dorio. He happens to be a gentleman who very much cares about our elder population. He's a geriatric specialist, and we've been talking about the top concerns of our elders, our seniors, and the number one thing above and beyond any medical condition that can come down the pike as we get older. And there are a number of them insofar as arthritis and heart disease and respiration and neurological issues. There are a number of things that can affect us as we age. But the number one thing, it's interesting, I spoke to a gentleman yesterday whose specialty was anesthesia. And I said, what a remarkable field you're in, because one of the number one concerns of all patients is pain. Nobody wants to be in pain. And the same thing when it comes to our elder population. Our quality of life is the most important thing. Again, Dr. Dorio, thank you for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
My very first show. One of the things we were talking about is the idea that as we age, we don't have to depend on doctors. We don't have to be in your office all the time. And we've talked about what they're calling the silver tsunami, where it's going to be just this true flood of people who are aging into a certain portion of the population. And as I said, if you were a car mechanic, you can only have so many cars up in the bay.
That's right.
You don't want to be taking care of them all the time. So we don't need to depend on our doctors, but we do need to have a very good relationship with them. And one of the things that will add to our quality of life as people are the certain screenings that we could be doing to prevent some of the issues. And we had talked about some of the embarrassing ones that are not at all a problem. The fecal occult blood test, which is really something that should be done annually. It's horribly gross, I'm not going to lie, but it has to be done. And it's pretty simple. And really, the doctors and the nurses and the technicians who deal with that have a way worse job than you do, honestly. But one of the things we talked about also, a very simple test that needs to be done that can save lives, save an awful lot of heartache and finance for a patient, is a skin screening. Mm-hmm. Can you walk me through what is that like when one of your patients comes to you and you mention to them, hey, we really should do, a skin screening?
As you get older, you get what I call barnacles. Things start to grow on your skin, and you don't know.
Right.
But with the
you don't see them all.
You don't see them all. And
yeah.
the tsunami generation, though, those folks were prone to get out into the sun and smoke the cigarettes and, be on the beach here in Southern California and take advantage of being cool.
Right.
And now they're facing the consequences of it. And yeah, you need to make sure that your skin is checked. A lot of the things are very benign, and sometimes you have to get them taken off. Sometimes they arise like near an eyelid or in an area that's very sensitive, like an armpit, and you get those removed. But there are some things that are growing, and there's some things that are old and there, and they're not. They have not been a problem before. They don't bleed, fine. But when they start to hurt, when they start to bleed, if they look funny, you have to bring it to our attention. And for some people, they will tell us. Some people won't. We look at the body when we do our physical exam. Sometimes we can see it, and sometimes they hide it from us. That's just the way the modesty is for some of our seniors.
But getting over a little bit of that immodesty is probably in your best interest.
It is, but they don't. Some people, that mystery, the mystique of medicine, they just don't want to get things taken off. They don't want to be invaded.
But if they don't come to you, they could go to a dermatologist, and perhaps, if the ladies come in and say, oh, I don't want Dr. Dorio to, do this. Who else can do that besides a dermatologist? Can a physician's assistant or?
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be.
And a lot of the family practice physicians in their offices will do biopsies and shave things off, and the urgent cares do the same thing. So there are places where you can go know that you can take away that mystery and be able to if you're worried, take care of that worry.
But the skin screening is a visual. It's just you or whoever seeing the patient, and it's very quick, isn't it?
It's real quick.
It's
The
less than...
fastest physicians out there are dermatologists, but they do a good job. They're there. After a while, after a few years, and I did dermatology for like 2 months, but their recognition is tremendous. I mean, they can walk in the room, look at it, they're done.
That's it. That's your job.
It. You don't need to do anything about it, or we need to do a biopsy
That's
of
a
that.
good gig if you can get it.
So your visit to a dermatologist will be really quick and hopefully not harmful to you or invasive to you. But if there is something there that's a problem,
well,
they'll recognize that too. And
right.
you really, the worst cancer is a malignant melanoma.
Right.
That's where our problem is. And if you have that, that's got to be taken care of immediately. Others, pretty benign basal cells, squamous cells, for the most part, don't impinge on your life at all.
Right.
But getting a good skin screening, demystifying the role of those doctors is very important for
and again, it becomes preventative. So in addition to that, one of the other simple things that I think we have to add to our days as we age is movement. And just the simple act of stepping on the scale, because that scale can lead to a lot of problems, can't it? What is the recommendation if you have a patient come to you? You kind of want to keep them at a certain weight in order to prevent them from inviting a host of problems. Is that correct?
Well, that's really an interesting question, because I always want my patients to weigh themselves. In cases where you have congestive heart failure, kidney problems, your weight is going to change and fluctuate, usually increase. Simultaneously, you might have some swelling in your ankles or some breathing problems with that. So patients need to weigh themselves, and family members need to know what those weights are. That's really important. If your weight is going down, that also could be another indicator of how that individual is doing, not just nutrition-wise, but if there's a gastrointestinal problem with the stomach or the intestines or a bowel movement problem.
Where the body's not using the food as the appropriate nutrition.
Right.
You have a lot of different... So sometimes one of the best medical things you can have in your home is a scale. It's number one on top of all the things that you bring into your house. If you can walk and you're mobile, you should do these things. But the scale is so critically important to your well-being, especially as you get older. As you're saying, fluid or nutrition issues. There are some complications that our senior citizens come up against when we talk about geriatric medical concerns. I know there are a handful, and they're all very complicated, but I'd like to tick them off.
Sure.
Isolation is probably one of the worst things our senior population can...
Social isolation.
Social isolation. Denial in their own well-being and what's happening with them. I've seen it over and over again that denial is really very, very can be very complicated in helping them have the best quality of life, as we've talked about. Poor communication. I have, Dr. Dorio, I have to tell you, I have family members and loved ones over the years. Communication was so not going to happen at any level, whether it was disease-related, well-being. And I joke that, God bless my mother-in-law, she was probably like the worst teenager. There comes a point in her life, there came a point where she just shut us down. She was not telling us, and I used to say it's like having another teenager in the house. Financial concerns, most certainly, so critically important, and family dynamics. Sometimes family dynamics can get in the way of our seniors having a lovely quality of life, simply because there might be emotional issues with whoever they're dealing with. When it comes to those areas, if you had to send a patient someplace to deal with that, I think I know the answer, but I would love to hear from you. What would be one of the first things you would suggest to them to deal with any one of those issues?
I wouldn't send them anywhere.
You wouldn't?
No. I would talk to the people surrounding the patient and ask them what their thoughts on this, whatever the problem might be.
So you would reach out to the family.
I would reach out to the people around the patient, friends, family, church first, to find out what might be going on, especially if I'm walking in the door and trying to be involved. I'm going to get one picture from the patient, and the patient, in denial or whatever is going on, is going to say, it's not me.
What about the patient with social isolation, or family dynamics where there isn't a family member? They come to you alone. Would there be because if it were me, my question would be in every community, not just Santa Clarita, like the senior center where they would be able to go and deal with some of those?
But even when, for those, and it's rare. So rare, like, 90% of the population does very well. It's that small, less than 10% that is socially isolated, and that's innate. That's not anything that you can really control. It's an easy time for me because I do have churches and senior center and places where they can socialize. This is easy, but there are a few, and mostly guys, that, like I said, that's where our problem lies, that just will want to stay in their home, not want to get out. They have their little niche that they want and their comfort zone.
Right.
And I, see that they will end up, not being changed. I can't do that. It's just hard for me sometimes. And I work my way through that communication. I try to demystify. But at times, I've found that you don't bang your head against the wall.
Right.
You try to make the efforts and convince them, and then sometimes you have to allow them to remain in that comfort zone.
Right.
And because you do, then you can pry them out to a certain degree to just assure that their health is okay. That's what I try to make sure the direction they are going.
Right.
So it's rare that I have patients that I have to look into that arena. Most of the time, it's easy to talk to the patient, see where they're coming from, but then look at the surroundings of their family and say, here, what's going on with them?
Right.
That makes the biggest difference for me because the dynamics, the denial, all of that is there, but we can break those issues down. Relative to your mother-in-law, they're not going to, and my mother, who's 93 years old, I'm her son. You're the in-law. I mean, they don't listen to us.
No, they don't.
They just don't have that thought that they're going to respect our ability to put them in the right direction. My brother's a physician.
Right.
I'm a physician.
Well, you'd think they would look to you and say, "Oh, you have the answers."
And my other brother says, "Mom, but you have to do this. This is very important."
Right.
And your two sons who are doctors are saying you should do this. And she looks up at him and says, "I'm going to ask my doctor." So that's just
So that's the way.
That's
it's the
the way
nature
it
of the
is.
beast.
It's
That's
the nature of the beast.
Okay, so in addition to complications, there are some things to ensure a better quality of life before medical issues ever become part of the picture. In addition to exercise, healthy eating habits, I love that for you. We also have appropriate rest, necessary medical, vision, dental checkups. One of the things you have been a very strong voice is that socialization. That is one of the things. I think if there were a pyramid, like a food pyramid of geriatric concerns, it seems like that is the foundation. That is one of the best things for the quality of life is that socialization.
There's no doubt about that. If we can get them out into the community and provide the arenas for them to go to, that works. The difficult part is that as they're getting older, they can't drive anymore.
So
they don't want to
mobility.
take the bus. It's
Right.
mobility. So you're getting a whole conglomeration of problems that contribute to the anti-socialization of the patient.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out a system of bringing things to them in their home. Because most of my patients, 99% of my patients here in Santa Clarita will not go to a nursing home. And that's their biggest fear, that they're going to end up in a nursing home or they're going to end up in the hospital and they're going to die there. So how do we reassure them? Well, we find the comfort of being able to give them the services that they need in their home, where they live.
Right.
And from the time they start to deteriorate to the end point of life, we're saying to them, okay, if you want to die in your home, we are going to give you that option too.
Right.
Nowadays, over 90% of patients die in the hospital.
And that's not okay.
They don't want to die in the hospital.
No.
They want to die at home. We need, in the next 10 years, with this generation, the tsunami generation advancing, we need to change that. We need to make it so that it's rare that they're in the hospital.
Yes.
And facing end of life.
Yes.
They're at home with their family, their friends, their piano, their pets, their bed, their pillow, feeling comfortable with where they are when they pass away. Why aren't we doing that right now? What is wrong with our society? Well, nothing's wrong with our society. We just haven't looked at it that way.
I think, too, it's a communication issue because for a lot of people, that's uncomfortable to have those conversations or to think about
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. I think it's very interesting that we are most certainly a society that is so interested in what we look like. We're very much about what we look like. I think there's also that thing that we don't want to think about the fear or the weakness of the idea that that's part of the package as the human condition.
As we get older, right.
As we get older. And I think, again, it is very, very critical that we have these conversations and that we realize it's not frightening. I think a lot of what has happened, death got a bad rap somewhere along the way, and it has become very scary, and it doesn't have to be. It has become overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be. And it's lost a lot of the dignity because we are so interested in prolonging life at all cost that a lot of times we look at the person that we care about, that we love, and we say we just want to keep them here with us. There's a communication glitch that has happened to where we've lost the ability to see that as something
Just to
powerful.
point one last thing out.
Yeah.
Last year in this community, I had 5 patients, all women who were in their 90s, who none of them had cancer, 5 patients who passed away at home. And they did not suffer. They were in their comfort zone. They were not in pain. They were not on hospice, and they had their family around them. To me, that's where we need to head. That's what we have to look at as we look to the future for this tsunami generation.
I agree. I agree that how you come into this world, how you live your life, and how you exit this world can all have a certain level of power, love, and dignity. And I agree with you. And we are going to definitely have that conversation another time because I certainly am on the same page. Again, we're here with Dr. Gene Dorio. He's my very first guest here on Dr. Proctor. Again, this is a show where we make an opportunity for you to listen in and monitor exactly what it is doctors are doing and having the conversations and sort of breaking them down in a way that we're going to try to make it so that it's compassionate, understandable, and not as scary or mystifying as it could possibly be. Dr. Dorio, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about where if we are the member of the sandwich generation, or if we are of the particular age where we are starting to be concerned about geriatric medical concerns, either for ourselves, for our loved ones, for family members and friends, we're going to talk about some of the places that they can go for more information, learn a little bit more also about you, sir, before we close out for the day. Again, you're listening to Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am T. Welcome back to Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm here today with Dr. Gene Dorio, who's a geriatric specialist, and we've been talking about how as the population ages, there is what statisticians are calling the silver tsunami, quite the number of baby boomers who are aging into a particular place, plus the sandwich generation who's already taking care of older loved ones. And one of the top concerns of elder seniors, beyond the medical, beyond the heart issues, the neurological issues, the dietary, everything that can happen to the body, the number one thing that I think we all want for our loved ones, for ourselves, for our elder seniors is quality of life. And Dr. Dorio, again, I thank you for being here and allowing me to ask some of the questions of what those issues could be, how we deal with those. There are so many things we did not discuss, and I will be writing about this because I'm very fascinated by the idea that you, sir, this is your area of expertise, and you've thought this through about mobility and whether or not people drive, how they will ultimately see the end of their days, whether or not there's money and homelessness, and just everything about their physical prescribed medications. It's unbelievable for me how incredibly well you've thought this through, because this is your area of expertise. And we have talked about preventative lifestyle and testing and medication. And I do love how you have also mentioned one of the number one things we can do is to change our culture, how we can develop a Department of Aging in Santa Clarita. I think this is a conversation that definitely needs to be had in every city, where it's a combination of all agencies, assisted living, board and care, home health, physical therapy, and so many other things that could be under one roof, where it's really one-stop shopping for our senior citizen population. And then it's a whole other conversation we won't be able to get into today about taxes and other technology, but I invite our audience to learn more about you. Again, I'm speaking with Dr. Gene Dorio. The last name is Dorio. Please Google him. Do yourself a favor. Do for yourself, for your loved ones. Google Dr. Dorio. Learn more about who he is, what his concerns are for the aging population, and also talk to start a conversation with your city planners, with your legislation about a Department of Aging. I think it's a wonderful idea, Dr. Dorio.
And let's get started on that. We've mentioned it before. The only time it seems to circulate around is during the election time. So I think it's been pointed out and it's been brought to the attention at the senior center, at city council, but I think we need to rise up now and say, it's time. There are models out there. Like you said, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just get started on this and start putting everything together so that if somebody, that sandwich generation person is having a problem, or they start to have a problem, they have one phone call to call, and we'll triage them into an arena that will help them out.
I love that this is your compassion and your care and concern for this particular population. It's very evident, and I love that you are so strong-minded about it. It's one of the things I like best about you. Again, I encourage you to Google Gene Dorio, Dorio, and if you have ever any questions, you can always shoot them to me here at information@hometownstation.com. I'll make sure I get that. Again, this is Dr. Proctor, IMT, here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.